Behind these walls, she found her heart. The first time Officer Maya Reeves saw her, the world inside, Hartwell Correctional Facility seemed to go quiet in a way it never had before. Maya had worked those corridors for 6 years. 6 years of clanging doors, echoing footsteps, the particular kind of exhaustion that settles into your bones when you spend your days surrounded by locked rooms and broken people. She had learned to keep her eyes steady and her heart closed, because that was the only way to survive a place like this. But on a gray Tuesday morning in October, when she escorted a new group of inmates through the intake hall, something shifted deep inside her chest. A feeling so unfamiliar she almost didn't recognize it. Standing at the back of the line, with her wrists in cuffs and her eyes cast down at the floor, was a woman named Serena Cole. And though Serena didn't look up, and though Maya didn't stop walking, something invisible moved between them in that brief moment, like two stars in separate galaxies suddenly becoming aware of each other's light. Serena had been sentenced to 3 years for a financial crime she had committed out of desperation, not greed. Her mother had been sick, the bills had been impossible, and a single terrible decision had unraveled everything she had spent her life building. She arrived at Hartwell carrying nothing but a small cloth bag and a silence so heavy it seemed to press against the air around her. The other inmates read her quietness as coldness, and they kept their distance. The guards read it as submission, and they paid her little attention. But Maya, who had learned over 6 years to watch people more carefully than most, saw something else entirely in Serena's stillness. She saw a woman who was grieving, not just for her freedom, but for the version of herself she had been before the world fell apart. And that kind of grief, Maya knew from her own private darkness, was the loneliest kind there was. The weeks passed the way they always did in Hartwell. Slowly, repetitively, each day a carbon copy of the last. Maya did her rounds, filed her reports, kept her distance from every inmate the way protocol demanded. But she noticed Serena in the small, quiet ways that don't announce themselves. She noticed that Serena spent her free hours in the corner of the common room with a worn paperback novel pressed to her face. She noticed that Serena never asked for anything, never complained, never caused a single problem, and yet somehow seemed to live with a weight on her shoulders that no one around her could see. And she noticed most of all that Serena never cried, not in front of anyone. There was something heartbreaking about that particular kind of dignity. The decision to carry your pain so carefully that no one ever had to witness it. Maya recognized it because she practiced it herself every single day. The moment that changed everything happened on a Thursday evening in December, when Maya found Serena alone in the facility library after hours. It was an accident. A scheduling mix-up had left the library unlocked, and Maya was doing a routine sweep when she pushed open the door and found Serena sitting cross-legged on the floor between 2 shelves, holding a book she wasn't reading, her shoulders trembling with the silent sobs she had been holding inside for months. Maya stood in the doorway for a long second, every professional instinct telling her to announce her presence, file a report, restore order. Instead, she stepped inside quietly and let the door fall shut behind her. She didn't say anything at first. She simply sat down on the floor a few feet away from Serena, in her full uniform, and let the silence between them be something other than empty. Serena looked up with startled, reddened eyes, clearly expecting a reprimand. What she found instead was a woman looking at her not as a prisoner, not as a case number, but as a human being who was allowed to hurt. That look, just that look, made Serena cry harder than she had in months. And something in Maya quietly broke open too. They didn't speak much that evening. Maya broke about a dozen unspoken rules just by staying, and they both knew it. But in the days that followed, something had changed in the invisible language between them. When Maya passed Serena in the corridor, there was an awareness now, a mutual recognition that they had shared something real. Serena started leaving small, folded notes inside library books, observations about what she was reading, questions about the world outside, fragments of herself offered carefully, the way you'd offer food to a wild bird, gently and without expectation. Maya should have reported the notes. She should have maintained the wall that her job demanded. Instead, she started reading them twice, 3 times, pressing them flat with her fingers the way you'd press a flower you wanted to keep. She began writing back, slipping her responses into the same books. And for both of them, Those small folded pages became the only place in the world where they could be honest. What grew between them was not reckless or dramatic in the way that people imagine forbidden love to be. It was quiet and careful and achingly tender. It was the look shared across a noisy dining hall. It was Serena learning that Maya had a younger sister she adored and a childhood full of silence she was still recovering from. It was Maya learning that Serena had once wanted to be an architect, that she drew buildings in the margins of every page she read, that her mother had died 8 months into her sentence, and that the grief of missing the funeral was something she would carry inside her body for the rest of her life. It was two women, each lonely in her own particular way, finding in the other something that felt terrifyingly like home. But Hartwell was not a place that allowed that kind of tenderness to go unnoticed for long. A senior guard named Officer Drent had watched Maya's behavior shift over months with narrowing suspicion. He had seen the brief eye contact, had found it curious that Maya always volunteered for the library wing. When he reported his suspicions to the warden, an internal investigation was opened without warning. Maya was called into the warden's office on a frozen January morning and confronted with questions she had no clean answers to. She didn't confess to anything inappropriate, because nothing inappropriate had happened, but she couldn't deny the emotional truth of what existed between her and Serena, and the silence she offered instead said more than any words could have. She was suspended pending investigation and escorted out of the building with a box of her belongings before the afternoon was over. When Serena was told through a third party that Officer Reeves had been suspended, she sat very still on the edge of her bunk for a very long time, staring at the wall, and felt the particular devastation of losing the one person who had made a cage feel less like a cage. The investigation took 11 weeks. Maya spent those weeks in her small apartment, sitting with the terrifying clarity that comes when everything you have protected yourself with is suddenly stripped away. She thought about her career, which she had built with 6 years of exhaustion and sacrifice. She thought about the rules she had navigated carefully and the ones she had let dissolve. And she thought about Serena constantly, helplessly, not with guilt but with a tenderness so persistent it frightened her. She began writing letters she didn't send, filling pages with everything she had never allowed herself to say. And in that lonely, uncertain apartment, surrounded by silence, Maya Reeves finally admitted to herself what she had been refusing to name for months. She was in love with a woman who was behind walls Maya could no longer access, and that love was the most real thing she had felt in years. The investigation concluded that no ethical violations involving physical conduct had occurred. Maya was reinstated with a formal written warning and reassigned to a different wing, far from the library, far from Serena. They would not see each other again, not inside those walls. But 2 years later, on a Tuesday afternoon that bore a strange resemblance to the one where everything had begun, Maya was sitting in a coffee shop near her apartment when the door opened and Serena Cole walked in. She was free. Her sentence had been completed. She was wearing a blue coat and carrying a sketchbook, and her eyes swept the room the way eyes do when they're looking for someone they've been imagining, finding for a very long time. When her gaze landed on Maya, neither of them moved for a full breathless moment. Then Serena walked over slowly, sat down across from her without being invited, and placed her sketchbook on the table between them. On the open page was a drawing of a building, wide windows, tall ceilings, the kind of place that felt like shelter. In the bottom corner, in small, careful letters, she had written, "I drew this for you. I've been drawing it for 2 years." Maya looked at it for a long time, and then she looked up at the woman across from her, and her eyes filled with the tears she had been holding since January of the year before. Outside the window, the city moved in its ordinary way, completely indifferent to the extraordinary thing happening at a small table near the door, where 2 women were finally quietly beginning. If this story moved something in your heart, if you believe in the kind of love that survives walls and waiting and impossible distances, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that real love always finds its way. Your support means more than you know, and it helps these stories reach the hearts that need them most. Before we close, there's something we'd love to know. Drop a comment below telling us what you believe love is capable of surviving. Whatever your answer, we want to hear it, because every perspective matters, and every story deserves to be witnessed. Some loves are born in the wrong places at the wrong times, behind the wrong walls, and they survive anyway. Because real love doesn't ask permission from circumstance. It simply waits quietly and stubbornly until the doors finally open. And when they do, it walks forward without hesitation, toward the one person who made the waiting worthwhile. Maya and Serena didn't find each other in spite of the walls between them. In some impossible, aching way, the walls were what taught them both what they were looking for. And when the last one came down, they were finally ready to build something together. Something with wide windows, tall ceilings, and room enough for everything they had both survived.